Hello and welcome to this episode of Music with Tony Toppi. Today's topic will be major scales. And we'll be focusing on a few different aspects with regards to scales. So we're going to focus on writing them. We are going to focus on singing them or playing on your instrument, one or the other. And we are going to focus on hearing them. So how do we identify them orally, visually, and singing them? So the first thing you'll need to do is make sure you revise my previous video on key signatures, as they will apply to this particular episode. So let's get straight into it. How to write a major scale. Similar principles will apply to any scale, but we're focusing on major scales today. So we'll start off with our clef, and once again I'll just use treble clef for today. If you need practice on bass clef, can I suggest you either write to me asking for a video on the bass clef, or just do a simple Google search for bass clef notes. I will incorporate bass clef, but just in the interest of keeping everything consistent for the moment, we'll stick to treble clef. So we'll start with the first scale, the easiest one with no sharps or flats, which is C major. So we'll write my middle C there. You will notice that that C is on a line. We know, or we should know, that scales have 8 notes in them. So I'm going to write another 7 notes going up the staff and going in this pattern. Line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. All the way up for 8 notes. The question might ask, write the C major scale. I have started on C. The question may also ask ascending or descending. In this case, we've gone with ascending. I've got my 8 notes. My next step would simply be to go and look at the key signature of the required scale and apply any sharps or flats to that key. C major has none, so as far as this question is concerned, we are completed. Let's, however, try one that's got a key signature with sharps or flats. So we're going to just start easy again, and we'll start with F major. So F, I should write here, C major. Always good to label what you do. So F, we're going to do the F major scale here, and we are going to write it ascending. And generally speaking, unless you're doing an AMEB exam or some other examination board's exam, they may ask for 2 octaves. I'm focusing here on VCE material, which is generally 1 octave, but same rules will apply either way. Read the instructions and do as required. So here's our F. It's in a space. I'm going to follow my line, space method until I get to my 8th note. So space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line. You may also realize a little trick here, that if you start on a space, you're going to end on a line, and vice versa. If you start on a line, you will end on a space. So we have our 8 notes ascending, line, space, etc. Now I need to go back and think about what's in the key signature of F major. And we should know by now that there is a B flat. B flat will occur on the 4th note of the scale and is here. And there is your flat. Sometimes the question may ask for you to use a key signature, in which case you would put the flat here at the beginning. You will not need to put the flat in amongst the notes as an accidental if you use a key signature. Let's do one more example before we move on to singing and playing them. We are going to do a descending one this time, and let's go with D major. So D major, I just picked that at random, there was no method to that one. And descending. And if we're going to descend, we won't start low on the stave, but we will start higher up on the stave. So there's our line, down by a space, line, space, line, space, line, space. And there's that little trick again. We have started on a line and ended on a space. Fantastic. There are two sharps in D major, as you would have known from my last episode, and they are F sharp and C sharp. There you have it. Now what you could do, as we said before, is it could just go into the key signature, which would be here, F sharp and C sharp. Either way, that's the way it would work. So that's how you construct or write a major scale. Pretty straightforward. Let's now move on to the singing and or playing of these scales. So we're going to probably do the singing, playing and hearing all at once because they sort of interrelate with each other. So let's start. I'm just going to stick with C major for now. It's all the white keys on the piano. If you're a singer and you don't necessarily learn or play an instrument, I recommend you go out and you buy yourself a small keyboard that's got at least 2 octaves of notes on it and start to learn these scales on the piano. Once again, it will help you to associate pitch with notes, and it will help you to ingrain the sound of these scales into your mind as well as a physical response. So here we go. Here's the sound of the C major scale. And I did it, of course, ascending and descending because guess what? In music, melodies and music will go up and down, so why should we not practice our scales in that way? Now, the singing of them. I could simply sing like this, and I'll play along just to keep me in tune. La, 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 la. Sorry that you listen to me sing, but that's the way that we learn our scales. So I could do everything on a La. Great, it would work, but it won't work as well as if we start to associate some sort of language to these notes and sounds. There is a language, there are multiple languages. I could actually sing this scale using note names. What note names? The names of the scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Easy enough, but then unfortunately that language will only work for C major. I could move to another more universal language, and that's the number language, and I could sing like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's getting a bit closer to what I think we need. We will certainly run into problems later on with minor scales and other sorts of scales where there are flat thirds and flat this and flat that and sharp this and sharp that. So there's another universal language that I feel is more appropriate to use, and that's the Soulfire method. And the Soulfire method sounds like this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. No matter which major scale you choose to sing, the Solfa will remain the same. Yes, the numbers will also remain the same, but personally, in my voice and how I feel most people operate, the Solfa is actually nicer to sing. So let me just scroll down here and I'll actually write out this Solfa method for you. So we start on Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. So that's our Soulfire method. And we could associate that with the scale. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So once again, maybe this time you can sing along with me. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, And that's a good way of practicing to know how to hear and write your major scales. So following on from that, I have devised a few tips and tricks for practicing major scales and ways that you can get this sound in your head. So first one there, sing them in solfa, numbers and note names, which we have just done for you today. You'll notice I've put on the screen the way we sing sharps and flats. Let's say, for example, I wanted to sing F major. It would be quite cumbersome to sing in this way. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So rather than saying B flat, we actually use the little word there, S. So instead of saying B flat, we say Bess. F, G, A, Bess, C, D, E, F. I'm getting to the top part of my range here, so sorry about that. Alternatively, you could also use the sharp. So if I'm singing in, let's say, D major, F sharp will become Fis, and C sharp will become Sis. D, E, Fis, G, A, B, Sis, D. A good way to practice, but once again, that combination is only really good for teaching you or reminding you of the names of the notes within that one particular scale. The next point there is to play the scales. Play them as much as you can in all different keys, starting on, whatever you like. Just for the purposes of time, I'm playing ascending. You could, of course, do them descending also. But any key, all keys, play them as much as you can up and down your range. That's why I'm suggesting that singers get at least a 2-octave keyboard, because most singers would have at least a 2-octave range, hopefully more. The next little point there, create melodic sequences. Sing and play them. Now I can create and play them much quicker on the piano since that's my main instrument, but singing them I might be a bit slower. But here's an example of a melodic sequence. And if I were to try and sing that, I'll just give you a small example. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, so, fa, mi, fa, la, so, fa, etc. And you can create as many as you like. There are a lot of common vocal exercise books out there that have like scales in thirds, or even like with triplets. Anything you can do to get that sound of the major scale in your head. And the last point there is to sing any song or piece in solfa that's in a major key. With my students, I have found a lot of books that just have simple little 8-bar, 12-bar, whatever, folk tunes that are excellent, especially for use in VCE and other examinations for music. But that's the best way I can suggest that you play and sing your major scales. So I hope that's been informative. As always, if you have any suggestions or questions or comments, please feel free to email me at tonytoppi@me.com. Thank you.